Good morning, PTNI's Daily Show. Hope everyone's having a good Thursday morning so far. My name is Alan. I'm the COO of ICE. Today I'll be talking about the dichotomy of leadership. But before I start, I want to shout out everybody down at CSM. Have some ICE faculty and some friends from APHPT presenting some presentations and research the next couple days. After this session, I'll repost the schedule of all the population health talks and research going on the next couple days. If you're down there, check it out. Tonight, 5:30 p.m., outside of the convention center entrance, gonna have a parade. APHPT gonna have a parade about a mile down the road to a speakeasy. Have some cocktails. A couple people, Mike Eisenhardt and crew, are gonna rap about population health on a more informal level. But come on out, get your steps in, 5:30 p.m. You can't miss it. There's going to be a giant-ass band wailing away on some music. So you can't miss it. It's free. During the parade in the next couple of days, the APHPT membership, which is normally $100 a year, is going to be discounted pretty significantly. So come on out tonight if you're down in New Orleans. Join the parade, get some steps in, and see what it's all about, and join up. So let's talk about dichotomy of leadership. Before we talk about this, I think it's important to cover some background. So Carl Jung, philosopher, psychologist, a while back developed this theory, the dichotomy duality of man, which is basically that mankind has an infinite ability for both good and bad, and it's actually kind of our ability to oscillate between both sides of the spectrum that actually makes us who we are. If you've ever seen a movie called Full Metal Jacket about the Vietnam War, there's a scene where the main character gets called out by he's a Marine, gets called out by a colonel. He's got Born to Kill written on his helmet and a giant peace button on his flak jacket. And the colonel says, what the hell is wrong with you? Well, you have a peace button on your jacket and Born to Kill written on your helmet. And the main character says, it's the Jungian thing, the duality of man. So we see this too in leadership, that if we think of leadership characteristics kind of along a number line almost, that at each end is kind of extremes, and people tend to adhere to one extreme or to the other because it's a lot easier than being in the middle. And we see that it's actually better to fluctuate back and forth between the extremes and sometimes sit in the middle, kind of an end, not or mindset, because that's where the most effective leadership happens. So I'm going to talk about 10 dichotomies of leadership today. So the first one we'll start off with is a leader must always be confident but not cocky. So a leader's confidence should be really contagious. There should be no doubt in your mind who's in charge when you're around somebody in a leadership position. That confidence should not be overwhelming. It should actually inspire other people to be more confident. So when I think about this, I think about like a really good CrossFit coach, someone that's confident in their movement, but that confidence rubs off on you. You feel more confident moving. You feel like you're able to do more because you're around that confident person. It's not overwhelming to the point where they're cocky and you don't want to hang around them, or you feel kind of overwhelmed. And it should never turn into arrogance, because once you are so confident that you become arrogant, the next step after that is complacency. And that's never a good spot to be when you're running a team, when you're running a clinic, when you're running a business. The next dichotomy, a leader should be courageous, entrepreneurial, but never foolhardy. So you should always be thinking about how to seize the initiative. You should be doing your research about how to think outside of the box, areas to expand in if you're a practice owner, kind of thinking outside of the way that you're traditionally running your business. But you should never risk the integrity of your business or the people in it on an endeavor. You should always be wary of all the risks and how to mitigate them. Sometimes delaying an initiative or canning it entirely is the best choice if you feel like you can't mitigate that risk. 3, a leader is extremely competitive, but a gracious loser. So you should always be pushing your people to the highest level, but you should also understand when and why it's okay for them to underperform. What's going on with them, maybe at home or in the workplace. And you should recognize that your people are actually humans, and that sometimes leaving at 4:59 p.m. is okay if they have to pick up their kids or see grandma at the nursing home. So pushing people hard, but recognizing that if a failure happens, why did it happen? And if it happened because of human problems, then that's okay. Number 4, a leader is extremely attentive to details, but not obsessed with them. So you should always be very attentive to details with planning. You should be really focused on putting a lot of the work in on the front end, details-wise, and then once you've set up an initiative, opened a new clinic, started a new area of practice, you shouldn't be bogged down in the minutia of the details, because when you focus on the details, sometimes you can lose sight of the bigger picture, which doesn't always lead to success. Number 5, a leader is humble but not passive. So you should be professional at all times. Something I learned a lot from my time in the military is that you should pass the praise. So as a leader, when you get praise for a job well done, maybe quarterly numbers look good, congratulations on successful new clinic opening, don't take that praise for yourself ever. Pass that praise down to the people who are working for you, because you'll find the most success that way. You'll really build that bond, that connect with your team members if you pass the praise. And that being said, there should be no doubt that you're in charge, that you're the leader, but it shouldn't seem that way. It should seem like this invisible guiding hand that's just passing the praise down for all the success. And you should keep your ego in check. You shouldn't let success go to your head. That's kind of a given. When I think about this dichotomy, I think a lot about our very own Jeff Moore, who is very, very humble, never takes credit for anything. I would say that his strongest characteristic is the ability to build teams like we have here at ICE. But when you're around Jeff, especially in person, I think what you realize is there's no doubt in my mind that he's the one in charge. He's very humble, but it's not a passive thing. There's no doubt that he's the man, right? So humble, but not passive. Number 6, a leader is aggressive, but not overbearing, mean, or rude. So this kind of bites me in the ass sometimes because I practice what I call bluff communication, bottom line up front communication. It saves time. You just cut straight to the point. It can be seen as aggressive. Sometimes there's a saying, default mode should be aggressive. But you should also have those nonverbals there and other context cues and clues that you're not trying to be mean or demeaning or rude. You're just being efficient, and kind of your default mode is aggressive. But you should always, always, always appear approachable with concerns, opinions, and welcome new ideas. The biggest part of this dichotomy is that you embrace disagreement. Someone walks into your office and says, hey, I think this should be like this. It's not going this way. I think if we do this thing this way, it will really improve whatever. You should always be open to that, because that's where positive change really comes from, is embracing disagreement, talking about stuff, and agreeing and moving forward with maybe a better idea that's not your own, which can sometimes be shocking to us. Number 7, a leader is calm but not robotic. So you should be passionate, and your team members should know when you should rarely see your passion, I should say. If you are always someone that loses your temper, you're always going to lose respect. Probably, the worst outcome of this is that if you are always kind of hooting and hollering about stuff, as we've talked on here before, the default response for most people is going to be to yell back, and then that's worthless. That's never constructive. So leaders who regularly lose their temper also regularly lose respect. So be calm but not robotic. A leader is strong but also has endurance, and here I'm talking about mental endurance. But it can be physical too. I think we do a really bad job of this in physical therapy. I think a leader should know when to push people, when to kind of push the gas and when to pump the brakes. but should be able to recognize team members' limits for efficiency, and set a pace that is productive, but that doesn't burn people out. And I think just in physical therapy as a whole, we're terrible at this. We expect new grads and veteran clinicians to see 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people an hour for 8 hours, 9 hours, no lunch, 2 to 3 hours of paperwork at a night. And then, of course, we say something like, damn millennials, when they quit after 6 months. So you have to be strong, but you also have to play the long game. You can push people hard, but you have to know when to pump the brakes sometimes. And I don't think we see this often enough in physical therapy. And the outcome of that is people quit often early into their career. They quit jobs 6, 9, 12 months. They transition to a completely different role within physical therapy. So maybe they take a job as a clinic director where they're not seeing as many patients. Maybe they take a job as an administrator within a hospital system where they're not seeing patients at all. They're kind of doing a more bureaucratic role, or maybe they take a job as they start getting into academia as a professor or something. So we drive people out of being clinicians with our inability to gauge endurance. And of course, the worst possible outcome is that they leave physical therapy altogether, right? They sink all this time and money into PT, and maybe even within their first year, they're out of the game. They go find something else to do, which is a detriment to our profession. I think of my time in the Army, where doing rigorous physical training all day, wake up at 4 in the morning, run 5, 10, 15 miles, hour calisthenics or weights every single day, can be grueling. And I noticed that the good leaders, the good sergeants and lieutenants, were able to read us when we showed up for physical training in the morning. If we were kind of doing that slow shuffle, like we had 100 pounds on our back to get into formation in the morning, we had a thing in the Army called zonk. And so zonk was, at the start of physical training, whoever was leading it would yell zonk. And that meant you had to get the hell out of there as fast as you could, because physical training was canceled for the day. And that's kind of a concept where you have to be able to read your people and know when they need a break. And I just don't see that at all in physical therapy. Physical therapy. That gave me feelings of euphoria like crazy when I was in the military, to have a zonk. And sometimes zonk was Friday morning, which meant zonk, see you Monday, 3-day weekend, which was amazing. And we don't do that. Basically, in physical therapy, if you're not in the clinic seeing patients, then you're not being productive and you're getting hammered about it. I can only imagine the physical and mental effects it would have on a clinician for a clinic director to say, like, hey, Steve, I see Friday afternoon is kind of slow. Why don't you take off after 1 p.m. and have a good weekend? Like, that has never happened. If that has happened in your clinic, please tell me about it, because I can't imagine that's ever happened in the history of physical therapy. So that's principle 8. Principle 8, leader is strong, but also understands the importance of endurance. So dichotomy 9, a leader is close with the team, but not so close that any member of the team becomes more important than the others. And again, I see in the clinic we do a really bad job with this. So you should know your people very well. You should be very close with them. That helps you understand their motivations, what drives them, how hard you can push them when you need to pump the brakes. But you should never rely on one single person. So we all know we have high performers in the clinic, in the workplace, and it's easy to rely on those people because they're naturally hard workers. But if you only rely on those people, you never get the chance to develop the people who aren't. And so it took me a while to get good at this in my clinic, because we have a PTA who's been practicing for 18 years, and she practices just like a PT. She has so much experience and all those touch points that we'd expect from a master clinician. It's really easy for me to delegate stuff to her because she's so experienced, but we hired a new tech, and if I only rely on the PTA who's really well experienced, the tech will never get the development to be good with what I want him to be good at. So we have to understand people and know them well, but not rely on one single person or a group of people to get stuff done. We have to develop those people so they come up together and they're at the same level. Last dichotomy, number 10. A leader practices extreme ownership. So we've talked about extreme ownership on here before, while also allowing for decentralized leadership. So we've covered this before, that is the leader, all the responsibility, successes or failures rests with you, even when you're not directly responsible for the outcomes, even if you're not in the clinic that day, on the job that day. And that there's no such thing as bad teams, just bad leaders. So if something goes wrong, it was probably your communication or lack thereof, or your guidance or mentorship or lack thereof, that led to the outcome. But that being said, that might cause a lot of people to micromanage. In the face of that overwhelming responsibility, you should not turn to micromanaging to ensure success. The only way that you can scale anything is to practice decentralized leadership, where you do a good job of vetting people for a position, and then, as we talked about before on here, giving them the responsibility away. If you want people to be strong leaders under you, strong independent leaders underneath you, then you have to give away some of your power as part of that. So that was 10 dichotomies of leadership that I've observed over the years. I can post these if you guys want them, or you can just rewatch this. So tonight, 5:30 p.m. outside the convention center, parade, APHPT, get some steps in, learn a lot about population health from the experts in the field, and have a fun time with a marching band, right? This weekend, I'll see some of you down in Kentucky. If you're going to Kentucky for our lumbar spine course in Winchester, I'll see you there. Justin is out on the West Coast in Portland teaching total spine thrust manipulation. And then we have Mitch going down to St. Simons Island in Georgia for Fitness Athlete Live Seminar. And then on top of that, we have 5 online courses churning. So busy weekend this weekend. I want to talk really quickly before I go about the ICE Sampler Vegas. First weekend in April, 7th and 8th at Physical in Vegas, RJ Williams's clinic. It's going to be a blast. If you haven't signed up yet, I can't tell you what a value it is to learn the best 3 hours of content from basically all of our faculty. Almost all of our faculty will be there, even if they're not teaching content. So it's a great opportunity to connect and network and have face-to-face time with them. We're going to have an awesome time Saturday night doing a group workout. The clinic location is 10 minutes from Red Rock Canyon National Park. So I'll be going out there the Friday before and getting in a 25-kilometer hike. So great opportunity to get a lot of physical activity in, get a lot of learning on. So check out the Sampler. Hope to see you there. That's April 7th and 8th in Las Vegas. So if you're down in CSM, have a good time, make good choices, and I'll see some of you this weekend in Kentucky. Have a great Thursday, everyone.